Ships and vehicles. FTL drive. Faster than light drives use element 0 cores to reduce the mass of the ship, allowing higher rates of acceleration. This effectively raises the speed of light within the mass effect field, allowing high speed travel with negligible relativistic time dilation effects. Starships still require conventional thrusters, chemical rockets, commercial fusion torch, economy ion drive, or military anti-proton drive, in addition to the FTL drive core. With only a core, a ship has no motive power. The amount of EZO and power required for a drive increases exponentially to the mass being moved and to the degree it is being lightened. Very massive ships or very high speeds are prohibitively expensive. If the field collapses while the ship is moving at fast and light speed, the effects are catastrophic. The ship is snapped back to sublight velocity, the enormous excess energy shed in the form of lethal Cherenkov radiation. Military ship classifications. Larger warships are generally classified in one of four weights. Frigates are small, fast ships used for scouting and screening larger vessels. Frigates often operate in wolf-pack flotillas. Cruisers are middleweight combatants, faster than dreadnoughts and more heavily armed than frigates. Cruisers are the standard patrol unit and often lead frigate flotillas. Dreadnoughts are kilometre-long capital ships mounting heavy, long-range firepower. They are only deployed for the most vital missions. Carriers are dreadnought-sized vessels that also carry large numbers of fighters. Smaller vessels are almost exclusively used in a support role to the warships during combat. Fighters are one-man craft used to perform close-range attacks on the enemy ships. Interceptors are one-man craft optimized for destroying opposing fighters. Normandy SR-1. The SSV Normandy SR-1 was a prototype starship developed by the Human Systems Alliance with assistance from the Citadel Council. The ship employed state-of-the-art stealth technology for reconnaissance in dangerous regions. Most ships emit heat that is easy to detect against the absolute zero background of space. The Normandy, however, could temporarily store its waste heat deep within the hull, allowing the ship to travel undetected for hours, or drift passively for days of covert observation. This was not without risk. Eventually the stored heat had to be released, or it would build to levels that could cook the crew alive. Another key component of the Normandy's stealth system was the revolutionary Tantalus drive, a Mass Effect core twice the size of a standard unit. The Tantalus drive generated mass concentrations that the Normandy fell into, allowing it to move without the use of heat-emitting thrusters. The Normandy SR-1 was destroyed in 2183 when it was ambushed by the Collector ship in the Omega Nebula. Space combat. Shells lofted by surface navies crash back to Earth when their acceleration is overwhelmed by gravity and air resistance. In space, a projectile has unlimited range. It will keep moving until it hits something. Practical gunnery range is determined by the velocity of the attacker's ordnance and the manoeuvrability of the target. Beyond a certain range, a small ship's ability to dodge trumps a larger ship's projectile speed. The longest range combat occurs between dreadnoughts, whose projectiles have the highest velocity but are the least manoeuvrable. The shortest range combat is between frigates, which have the lowest projectile velocities and highest manoeuvrability. Opposing dreadnoughts open with a main gun and artillery duel at extreme ranges of tens of thousands of kilometres. The fleets close, maintaining evasive lateral motion while keeping their bow guns facing the enemy. Fighters are launched in the attempt to close the disruptor torpedo range. Cautious admirals weaken the enemy with ranged fire and fighter strikes before committing to close action. Aggressive commanders advance so cruisers and frigates can engage. At long range, the main guns of cruisers become useful. Friendly interceptors engage enemy fighters until the attackers enter the range of ship-based Guardian fire. Dreadnoughts fire from the rear, screened by smaller ships. Commanders must decide whether to commit to general melee or retreat into FTL. At medium range, ships can use broadside guns. Fleets intermingle and it becomes difficult to retreat in order. Ships with damaged kinetic barriers are vulnerable to wolf-pack frigate flotillas that speed through the battle space. Only fighters and frigates enter close knife-range fights of 10 or fewer kilometres. Fighters loose their disruptor torpedoes, bringing down a ship's kinetic barriers and allowing it to be swarmed by frigates. Guardian lasers become viable weapons, swatting down fighters and boiling away warship armor. Neither dreadnoughts nor cruisers can use their main guns at close range. Laying the bow on a moving target becomes impossible. Superheated thruster exhaust becomes a hazard. Technology. Artifacts. The Citadel Council has called for the immediate donation of Prothean artifacts to bolster the war effort, primarily items of Reaper origin and recordings of their attacks. The Exogenic Corporation set an example by donating a store of newly discovered Palaven technology and releasing the data archives of deep space research colonies destroyed by the Reapers. Several private collectors have since stepped forward to donate the entirety of their collections. But despite an offer of amnesty for anyone concealing such artifacts, not everyone has responded as the Council hoped. Several artifacts have been found in obscure underground markets and safe haven worlds, presumably sold by newly arrived refugees who needed funds to survive. Reports say that smugglers continue to sell stolen artifacts, and armed raids on archaeological sites have rendered even legal operations extremely hazardous, after several reports of mercenary groups turning on the archaeologists who hired them. Atlantis Risk Control Services began to offer security details for archaeological sites at considerably reduced rates. Computers, artificial intelligence. An artificial intelligence is a self-aware computing system capable of learning and independent decision-making. Creation of a conscious AI requires adaptive code, a slow expensive education, and a specialized quantum computer called a blue box. An AI cannot be transmitted across a communication channel or computer network. Without its blue box, an AI is no more than data files. Loading these files into a new blue box will create a new personality, as variations in quantum hardware and runtime results create unpredictable variations. The Geth serves as a cautionary tale against the dangers of rogue AI, and in Citadel space they are technically illegal. Advocacy groups argue, however, that an AI is a living conscious entity deserving the same rights as organics. They argue that continued use of the term artificial is an institutionalized racism on the part of organic life. The term synthetic is considered the politically correct alternative. Virtual intelligence. A virtual intelligence is an advanced form of user interface software. VIs use a variety of methods to simulate natural conversation, including an audio interface with an avatar personality to interact with. Although a VI can provide a convincing emulation of sentience, they are not self-aware, nor can they learn or take independent action. VIs are used as operating systems on commercial and home computers. Minimal VI agents are also available. Agents are compact and specialized. Some serve as personal secretaries, filtering calls and scheduling meetings based on user-defined priorities. Others are advanced search engines, propagating themselves across the extranet to collate user-requested data. Commercial VIs and a variety of stock personalities are available at any software retailer. Boutique firms and hobbyists also build unique VIs to personal specification, although software emulation of living personalities is illegal. Reconstructions of famous historical figures are common. The Reaper War. The fall of Earth. The Reapers took Earth in a matter of hours. The Alliance knew the first wave had arrived from Batarian space, but they were unprepared for the speed and scale of the attack. The Reapers bypassed the 6th and 7th fleets at Terra Nova and Eden Prime, flying straight from relay to relay where they could neither be tracked nor intercepted. The tactic was unexpected, since the navies of organic species would never risk coming out of FTL within combat range or leaving enemies at their backs to threaten supply lines. At Arcturus Station, more than a dozen Reaper capital ships engaged the Alliance 2nd, 3rd and 5th fleets. This was mere screening for the main force. Dozens more capital ships continued to carry and relay, where the 1st fleet had been lying in wait but was soon destroyed. The 4th fleet near Earth had a few minutes of advance warning. It stood no better chance. After destroying Earth's convoys, the smaller Reaper destroyers wiped out all GPS and communication satellites in Earth's orbit and cut the undersea fibre optic cables that linked the continents. The Earth's resistance now relies on outdated radio towers and a few quantum entanglement communicators whose matched pairs happen to be in other continents or outside the Sol system. Communication is so limited that the fate of entire nations remains unknown. The capital ships bombarded defence installations and industrial centres, annihilating entire systems with populations in low millions, including Adelaide, Hamburg, Aljubnail, and Fort Worth. Meanwhile, Reaper destroyers descended into the atmosphere to melt roads and capture population centres with minimal loss of life. This is not an example of the Reapers being merciful. More likely, they are herding their prey to make the coming harvest that much easier. The fall of Karshan. For every 1,000 Batarian refugees, there are 1,001 stories about how the Reapers invaded the Batarian systems. A few elements are common to almost every version, however. The Reapers arrived first in the Vular system and immediately destroyed its communication network. The Hegemony's departments of information control blamed the loss of signal on space weather, but scrambled ships to the systems nonetheless. Within a day, Reaper capital ships appeared in the Harsa system and descended on the Batarian homeworld, Kashan. For all the rhetoric against the Hegemony's military prowess, the response to the Reapers was uncoordinated. Moments after the information minister took to the extranet and announced that unknown ships were destroying all space traffic near Karshan, the defence minister declared there was no reason to panic. The planet's convoys were destroyed next, creating an ominous silence that was persisted ever since. Fearing they were next, Batarian colonies across Hegemonian space began evacuations. So many refugees poured into the human-occupied Exodus cluster that the system's alliance officials at first thought the Batarians were invading. More systems have gone dark as their convoys were destroyed, and millions more Batarians, trapped on their planets, sit waiting for the Reapers. The Battle of Palaven. When Tetris fell, the Turians knew little about the Reapers except that they wanted to enrage the Turians. Staying calm, the Turians massed in force around Palaven, their homeworld. Fleet Admiral Alex Coronati, in what became known as the 15-minute plan, stationed only 2 carriers, undaunted and resolute, near the system's relay. When the Reaper fleet emerged, the carriers launched swarms of unmanned fighters and spy drones. These were quickly destroyed, but the drones transmitted vital data on the Reaper's effective range, fleet composition, and exact location. The Turians' other ships then deployed to defend the system in earnest. Knowing that the Reaper's weapons had a longer effective range than any of his own, Coronati made a short, daring FTL jump, landing his dreadnoughts in the middle of the Reaper fleet. The dreadnoughts then turned to line up their main guns on the Reapers, which also needed to turn to fire on the Turians. This ploy used the Reaper's size against them. Because they could turn faster, the Turian dreadnoughts locked targets first, and their concentrated firepower downed several Reaper capital ships. The Reapers countered instantly. Their destroyers performed a jump of their own to the skies above Palaven, beginning orbital strikes on Turian cities. The Turians, forced to defend the planet, found themselves in a pitched battle far from the relay, from which emerged a seemingly endless line of Reaper ships. After massive casualties, Coronati ordered retreat. The Turians insist that Palaven is not lost. The battle has merely moved to the ground. Reaper troop transports have dumped hordes of husks to capture Palaven's inhabitants, but met with little success. Reaper capital ships are destroying city after city, but much of the Turian fleet is still operable, and the citizenry is heavily armed. The Turians refuse to be intimidated.